Starting from a dictator who was beaten to death by his own people in the street, to another who tried to cheat death with fake doubles, to a leader who ruled with absolute fear, only to be executed by his own country on live television. These are the worst dictator deaths ever. Let's get you started with the man who ruled Libya like it's his own personal property, Muammar Gaddafi. Gaddafi wasn't your average dictator. He had a flair for the dramatic. Flashy outfits, a stunning line of female bodyguards, wild speeches. This guy treated politics like performance art. But behind all that dazzling spectacle was a regime built on fear, repression, and zero tolerance for dissent. For years, he crushed opposition. You could smile the wrong way and get turned to dust. Protest? Don't even think about it. Criticism? That's just a death wish. Entire uprisings? Yeah, those never ended well either. But nothing lasts forever. Gaddafi's rule of tyranny continued unchallenged until 2011. The Arab Spring, a series of pro-democracy, anti-government protests that were spreading like COVID-19 through much of the Arab world, hit Libya like a shockwave. Armed rebellions and uprisings shook cities out of government control. And suddenly, the man who had ruled for 42 years was on the run for his life. The Arab Spring was already a lot to handle, but somehow Gaddafi got NATO hot on his tail. He tried to escape his hometown of Sirte in a convoy, but NATO forces spotted it and launched an airstrike without hesitation. Vehicles were destroyed amidst the chaos everywhere. In the confusion, Gaddafi fled and was forced to hide in a drainage pipe. After decades of absolute power, he was hiding like a mole underground. Unfortunately, he ran out of luck when rebel fighters found him there. They dragged him out, and what followed was brutal. He was beaten, humiliated, and paraded through the streets by the same people he once ruled with an iron fist. He fell off the front of the pickup truck he was paraded in, and within hours, he was dead. Footage of his traumatic death spread like wildfire across the world. A man who once demanded absolute loyalty was mercilessly reduced to a captured fugitive in his own country. But if you think Gaddafi's ending was chaotic, Benito Mussolini's death takes humiliation to a whole new level. Mussolini was the founder of fascism. He was a crazy guy who inspired dictators across Europe. Yeah, you heard it right. Mussolini was in a league of his own when it comes to authoritative wickedness. He ruled Italy with propaganda, violence, and a borderline animalistic obsession with control. But by 1945, Mussolini's dictator utopia started to fall apart faster than he could keep up. World War II was coming to an end, and with it, Mussolini's hellish oppression. Italy was caught in a violent storm of change that Mussolini tried to run from. He disguised himself as a German soldier, hoping to sneak across the border into Switzerland. Yeah, not exactly a strong finish for a dictator who once stood on balconies shouting to massive crowds. Crowds who were now out for his blood. It's difficult to escape when literally everyone could recognize you instantly. He was caught by Italian partisans who captured him immediately along with his 15-man lineup. Benito Mussolini's life was brought to an end in a public execution. His death did little to douse the flames of hatred that the whole of Italy had for him. His body, along with his mistress Clara Petacci, was taken to Milan. And what happened next is one of the most infamous scenes in history. They were hung upside down in a public square, but that wasn't enough. Their bodies were beaten, kicked, and ruthlessly spat on by crowds of civilians. People who had lived under his regime for years finally had their moment, and they didn't hold back. This wasn't just an execution, it was a release of years of anger, fear, and resentment. A man who once demanded to be seen as a godlike leader ended up hanging upside down in the street. Up next is one of the fastest downfalls of any dictator, Nicolae Ceaușescu of Romania. This guy ruled with extreme, almost omniscient control. Surveillance was mounted everywhere, and secret police served as eyes watching everything. People were afraid to even speak freely in their own homes. But in 1989, everything changed, and Ceaușescu's suffocating rule met its abrupt end. His overbearing policies were met with strong resistance that sparked massive protests. But the killing and injuring of men, women, and children at the Timișoara demonstrations was the straw that broke the camel's back. Ceaușescu did what dictators often do and tried to act like nothing was wrong. He even gave a public televised speech, but his inability to read the room sealed his fate. The expected cheers never came, and the angry crowd turned on him instead. You can actually see the moment it hits him: confusion, panic, and then realizing that he was cooked. He wasn't in control anymore, and his world was collapsing. He managed to flee the scene, but he couldn't run forever. Within days, he and his wife were captured while trying to flee the country. And then came one of the most shocking parts. They were put on trial. Wait, calling it a trial is actually being generous. It lasted less than an hour before their charges were read. Accusations followed immediately, and before they could even fully process what was happening, they were sentenced to death. The executioners couldn't even wait and started shooting immediately when the Ceaușescus reached their positions on the wall. No long talk, no appeals. Just a wall, a firing squad, and that was the end of a dictator. And yes, it was filmed and broadcast to the public, so they could witness the end of an oppressive era. But if we're talking about televised endings, Saddam Hussein might be the most infamous one. Saddam ruled Iraq for over 20 years with brutal authority. Political opponents disappeared like water through the drain, and entire groups were targeted. But even the most violent of hurricanes come to an end. Saddam, however, did not go out without a fight. After the US invasion of Iraq in 2003, due to, according to them, Iraq's possession of weapons of mass destruction, Saddam fought a battle as his final act of resistance. Over 2,000 Iraqi soldiers lost their lives in what later became known as the Fall of Baghdad. Saddam went into hiding, and for weeks following the fall of Baghdad, no one knew where he was. Then, he was found, hiding in a small underground hole near a farmhouse. Sounds familiar? He was captured alive, put on trial, and unlike Ceaușescu, this one actually took time. Evidence was presented, and witnesses testified against him while the world watched. And eventually, he was sentenced to death by hanging, even though Saddam himself wanted death by firing squad, since, according to him, it was more befitting of his status. His wish was ignored, and the verdict went unchanged. Now here's where things get intense. His execution was recorded, although not officially, and leaked footage made its way online. Now, this next one is different, because unlike Saddam Hussein, Adolf Hitler didn't wait to be captured and humiliated. Most world-renowned dictators follow a predictable death playbook, but Adolf Hitler's rise wasn't just a political shift, it was a total personality overhaul. When he was appointed chancellor on January 30th, 1933, via the Enabling Act, he projected pure vigor and an undeniable, if terrifying, aura. But the honeymoon ended fast. The German public quickly realized that stability actually meant the Nazification of every single second of their lives. By 1934, Hitler stopped playing nice with his own team, orchestrating the Night of the Long Knives to permanently delete any internal rivals. Drunk on absolute power and fueled by a delusional sense of expansion, he dragged the world into the abyss on September 1st, 1939. It's a staggering amount of global destruction for a guy who originally just wanted to paint postcards and couldn't even get into art school. I guess when you fail at the Starry Night, you decide to make the whole world see stars. By early 1945, Hitler's 1,000-year Reich was looking more like a weekend lease that was about 3 years overdue. The Allied forces and the Soviet Union were closing in like a pair of industrial-sized nutcrackers, turning his expansionist dreams into a claustrophobic nightmare. This wasn't just a setback. It was the kind of geopolitical beatdown that forced the once brutal dictator to trade his parade car for a high-speed sprint to the Führer bunker. While Hitler was busy playing house in his new bunker, things were unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. His most trusted lieutenants, Göring and Himmler, decided they weren't really ride or die after all. Seeing the writing on the wall and the Soviet tanks encircling around Berlin, they began looking for the nearest exit strategy. On April 30th, 1945, Hitler decided it was time to clock out for good. In a final act of cowardice that doubled as a chemistry experiment, he tested a cyanide capsule on his own dog, just to make sure the quality control was up to par. Once he was satisfied the poison worked, he took the capsule himself and added a gunshot to the head for good measure. From Muammar Gaddafi being dragged from a hiding place and killed by his own people, to Saddam Hussein and Nicolae Ceaușescu facing public executions, these endings reveal how even the most feared rulers ultimately lost control in the most humiliating ways. In the end, whether through mob justice, execution, or suicide like Adolf Hitler, absolute power didn't protect them. It only made their downfalls more brutal and inevitable.